I'm Jim Collison and live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, Season 5, Episode 25, recorded on August 4th, 2017. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during this live webcast, we do have a chat room that's available for you right below the main video window. If you just look down, if you're watching us on YouTube, there's a chat room down there. I'd love to have you log in. Bottom left-hand corner, it says login. Just choose that. Choose the guest account. Put your name in where the guest name is. Take the numbers out. You don't need those. And then hit submit, and you'll be in our chat room. Don't sign up for an account. We just need you in the chat room. Good to know who you are so we can call you out by name, and we'll be taking questions during this program. If you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, you can send us an email. Best way to do that, coaching@gallup.com, or there's a contact form right there on the live page. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com, for all your Clifton Strengths coaching resources and training needs. And you can also catch the video in both streaming and downloadable audio for offline listening. They call this podcasting. So if you're getting into that, those are available to you. Just search Gallup on any podcast app, and we're available for you. You can automatically download it to your phone and have it for yourself to listen to in the car, on a train, in a plane each week. And we'd love to have you do that as well. Jeremy Petrosini is our host today. Jeremy works as a senior workplace consultant with Gallup here, and he's in Omaha, which is always good. Jeremy, welcome back to another Call to Coach. Great to see you.
Jim, thanks. Yeah, good to be here out of my home office in Omaha. Spent the week in Vermont working with some managers and coaches there, and they're actually launching their first accelerated strengths coaching in Burlington, Vermont next week. So we're excited to really see strengths continue to grow around the world. So want to welcome those of you who are back, regular listeners, viewers, to Call to Coach. We're excited for you to hear from a coach today and just kind of share her unique perspective on strengths and the impact that it's having on the individuals and specifically students and kids that she and the individuals who are part of her organization get to work with. As many of you know, again, part of Gallup's mission is there's over 7 billion citizens on the planet, and we don't want to just get to 1 billion people that know their strengths, but really live their strengths. And we can't do that without having a network of what we've set out to say over 1 million coaches that would be part of that with us. So we're currently at about 16.7, just under 16.7 million people that have taken Strength Finder. And again, we're excited to continue to see that grow every single day. When you watch that ticker on the Clifton Strength Center site, it's fun to just kind of see it continue to go up. So I want to jump right in. Our guest today is Allison Horn. Allison is a training and support specialist for an organization called Teammates. And she's going to tell us more about what Teammates is. It's based here in Nebraska. Gallup has a strong partnership with Teammates and the impact that they're having on students. But one of the unique things that she brings is even in her own work that she's done in the field of mentoring as a mentor, also as a program coordinator, regional director. Allison, do you have any free time? It's like, and I do this. But she's done that for over 10 years. She actually earned her certificate in strength-based education from the Clifton division of Gallup University in 2010. She coordinates program-wide training and does strength-based education specifically within the Teammates mentoring program. And she also does a lot of presenting. So she's presented at Gallup's Strengths and Education Conference that we hold for institutes of higher learning. She's also presented the National Mentoring Summit on Strengths Mentoring. And she's presented consecutive years at the Midlands and Iowa Mentoring Partnerships Annual Conference. Allison's top 5, I know for many of us, we're like, okay, we kind of care what she does, but what we really want to know is, who is she? So her top 5, input, communication, strategic, woo, and empathy. So Allison, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell everybody a little bit, just give us kind of a quick snapshot of what is Teammates.
Teammates is a school-based mentoring program. We started back in 1991 with a group of about 20 mentors who were willing to give about an hour a week in the school district. So they were mentors who were screened and trained, and they were willing to show up and be good listeners. We started with that group of 20, and today we have close to 8,000 across Nebraska and Iowa, and we're expanding into Wyoming, South Dakota, and Kansas this year. And one of the things that really makes teammates a little bit different than other mentoring programs, we're not just school-based, we're strength-based. So everything about what we do as mentors is about focusing on the good, noticing what is right about our mentees and building on that and doing a lot of strength spotting to help them to reach their full potential.
And is there a specific age range that you guys work with as in regards to kind of the mentees, the people that are part of the program?
Students can be anywhere from grades 3 through 12. We like to match early on, early in those elementary years, so that a mentor and mentee can build on their relationship. If we match you with a third or fourth grader, it's our intention that you stay matched with that same mentee for many years. So it gives time for trust to build, for the relationship to build, but also for that continual learning that you have happen together. A lot of what coaches do with their clients, it's about building a relationship and the time that that takes. We know that's the same case in mentoring.
Yeah, that's huge. Talk a little bit about how teammates started. So with Tom's vision for it, and even again, kind of the unique interaction we were talking about before the call started of just when Dr. Clifton, so many of you listening in today probably know this, but Dr. Clifton, who founded CliftonStrengths and the Strength Finder, movement and tool, and kind of the power behind so much of this initiative that's going on around the world. Dr. Clifton was a professor of psychology at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. So talk a little bit about just kind of that unique role that Tom Osborne, who founded Teammates, kind of had in their interaction in regards to his insight or knowledge of strengths at a very early kind of start in this whole movement.
Well, I do want to preface that our founder is Coach Tom Osborne. Sometimes people outside of Nebraska aren't necessarily familiar with who Coach Tom Osborne is. Coach Tom Osborne, Congressman Tom Osborne, he and his wife Nancy really had a vision to help students to get to that post-secondary learning opportunity. Back in the 60s, Coach Osborne was actually a student of Don Clifton's when he was teaching at the university. And at the time, positive psychology was a relatively new concept. Most of the professors were talking about, why does the mouse run to the cheese and mental disorders, where Don Clifton was talking about focusing on not what was wrong, but actually what was right with people.
Mm-hmm.
Had a very profound influence on Coach Osborne and in his coaching strategies, but also in everything that we do with teammates. So we saw the value of matching a mentor and mentee, knowing that if a mentee would come into a mentoring relationship thinking that the mentor might be focused on fixing them or trying to change them or noticing what's wrong, that might undermine trust building. So when we had that strength-based focus, it gave us an opportunity for us to build trust, because a mentor's role is to show up and see what is right.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're kind of rare in that aspect. There are not at-risk factors that students have to have in place in order to be matched with a mentor. It's actually available for all students. We believe that every student deserves to have an additional positive, caring adult in their life.
I love it. Yeah, I was just going to say, just to underscore that too, because I think a lot of programs out there, it's, hey, these kids are troubled kids or need help or need a mentor or need some. We're just saying these are kids who we want to have positive mentors. Again, for many of them, teachers, coaches, parents. But what if they had a strength-based, again, kind of underscoring that piece, a strength-based mentor in their life who's going to journey with them for, throughout their lifetime, in many cases, but that really sees what's right with them from the beginning. So that's awesome.
We believe that everyone has mentors in their life, but every child deserves to have additional mentors. When I look back and think about my third grade self, no doubt the woo was very present. It was part of the reason I spent a lot of quality time in the principal's office.
Not your communication. Your teacher never said she works hard, but talks a little.
Talks a lot. Yeah. I was at that magical moving desk,
right.
The one that just kind of always shifted around. But I think back to, I had a third grade teacher, Mrs. Weber, who was a mentor, but a strength spotter. She would not only put me in a position where I could shine, maybe giving my book report, utilizing that communication, but also if there was a new student, she'd pair me up with the new student. So she knew even the magical moving desk, Allison, could be an asset in the classroom. So I think when we think about all kids, they all have unique strengths, and having someone who could praise them in a way that says, this is awesome about you. Tell me more. How can we put you in positions where you can use this strengths to shine, but also helping them understand where other people can use their strengths too, and maybe let their woo and communication rest in the classroom.
Yeah. I love it. You mentioned the term strength spotting a couple of times. Talk a little bit more about that.
One of the things that we train our mentors to do is to, we have students take, if they're 3rd through 8th grade, they take the Strengths Explorer survey. If they're high school, they take Clifton Strengths for students. And what we do is we print 3 copies of their results. So one for the student, one to go home to parents, and then one for the mentor. And we really try to equip the mentor with the language to pay attention to these different strengths in action. My mentee has the strength of presence. So she is quite natural at being up in front of people. We've heard lots of stories about mentors who can strength spot their mentee who has competing, because maybe they may lose at the game of Mancala many times over. When we can do that with students, what actually happens is mentees turn into great strength spotters as well. They'll notice a mentor's positivity, or they'll notice their parent's responsibility. So we train to
My
being
kids
strength
notice
spotters.
my maximizer a lot. Is that good or bad?
I think that's great. We have a lot of students talk about, actually, that's ironic that you bring that up, Jeremy.
Yeah.
We have a lot of students talk about parents that have maximizer and what that's like, and how important it is that they understand what that strength looks like. I think my learning about strengths was powerful, but my kids understanding that my input means that I love questions. My favorite sentences end with a question mark. This isn't just mom interrogation.
Yeah, it's not
actually
interrogation. It's mom being curious. Yeah.
It's curiosity, and it's the best of me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I actually even shared that at the Strength Summit. So I know might have some listeners on, and I know you get to be a part of that. But just that idea of maximizer, again, any of our talent themes, and even you use the term presence. So with Strength Explorer, and for people that aren't familiar with it listening in, there's 10 themes instead of 34. And there's kind of, because of the early adolescence piece, and you can talk more about that too, because you work with it closer than I do day to day. But a theme like presence, which my daughter has as well, has kind of, and when she then just recently took Strength Finder, she has woo and communication and positivity. So you can kind of see some of that, like, is there that natural presence that she would bring in the classroom? And to spot that or identify that, again, even for me with my kids, realizing, okay, that's dad's maximizer. He's not trying to be overly critical, but he wants the best. And we can actually, when we can put a language to it, and I love with strength spotting, whether it's the mentee saying, hey, thank you for your positivity here. I needed some of that. Or if they just invite, they go, Jim, give me some of your woo today. I need some of that. It's that element of what that teacher did for you. And she may not have had a language for it, Allison, but like you said, in 3rd grade, and I love the combination you have too of communication, woo, and empathy, because it wasn't just that you were the class clown funny kind of, but the empathy piece was, okay, this new student that the teacher partnered you with, I can almost see it in my head of, you realize if the student was more reserved, you're like, hey, how's it going? If the student was more like, like me, you're like, hey, okay, here's how not to get in trouble in this class, But I love that the teacher, as your mentor, right, saw it early on, spotted it, and then did something about it. So that's really cool. Go ahead.
What's amazing is how we're all mentors, whether we're in a formal setting or not. As parents, as I try to be an awesome auntie. I have 14 nephews and 1 niece.
Wow.
I realize that I'm a mentor in that position. If I can look at and notice something that's right, and I might be adding praise to things that mom and dad are already noticing and recognizing, or great teachers are already recognizing. But in any point when I can say, this is great about you, or I love seeing this strength in action, that's just going to build on their own sense of self, but also their awareness of the strengths of other people around them. Someone with high presence like me will be that kind of a person who wants to communicate and wants to talk, where you might have a student in your class who's a little bit more introverted and needs time to think before they raise their hand. The more we build on that language, we feel at an early time, the better we can equip mentors and mentees to focus on strengths of others too.
Yeah, that's cool. So talk a little bit about some of the training, and you don't need to get too in the weeds with it, but what I think is interesting and would be interesting for people to hear is, especially for individuals like yourself or others that are coaches, they're like, I'm a Gallup expert. The mentors that you're equipping, we don't need them to be coaches. We don't need them to have, those 2 big boxes you get from the accelerated course or to pay $7,500 to go through a training. Talk about how you equip them. Because like you said, there's an element where we're all mentors, but if we want to become or even equip people that we interact with to be more strength-based mentors, what does that look like? What are some of those tools or training that you give them to begin to just be natural strength spotters?
When mentors sign up to become a mentor and teammates, they go through a 2.5, 3-hour new mentor training. And
Okay.
right from the beginning, we don't just focus on policy and procedure, we focus on relationship building. So showing up and being a good listener means listening to whatever your mentee wants to talk about. Now, sometimes that might be silence. Sometimes that might be their favorite band. Sometimes that might be their annoying little sister. So whatever they want to talk about and being present in that moment, that's a wonderful way for us to really key in on what they're looking forward to, what they're excited about.
How often on average are they meeting the mentor and the mentee, and for how long?
1 time per week.
Okay.
It's strictly school-based, so it happens during the school year. 1 time per week, usually about 40 minutes or so, and over many years. So a mentor and mentee meet for the first time, and they'll meet throughout the school year, but then you keep showing up. Our founder, Coach Osborne, refers to that unconditional support through the word agape. And agape means unconditional. I'm there for you no matter what. So I'm there for you if you flunk geometry. I'm there for you if you make a decision I don't necessarily agree with. I'm there for you if you have a 7th grade sort of attitude today. I'm still going to show up, and I'm going to affirm what's right about you, no matter the season, no matter the stage. I'm going to provide that affirmation. And what we have found is that builds on hope. And through a lot of the research that we've done with Gallup, focusing on the Gallup student poll results, high hopeful kids do amazing things. And so we want to make a difference in a young person's life. How can we do that? Well, if they're looking forward to seeing you, they're more likely to be more hopeful and more engaged. And when you've got high engagement and high hope, great things happen. We also see that happen on the mentor side as well. So our mentors are showing a higher level of engagement because they're spending that time focusing on what's right. For me as a mentor, I think it's helped me to be a better parent, a better auntie, maybe even a better sister. I don't know if my siblings would agree with that, but really
They can't chime in right now. They don't have a microphone, so we're going to assume that they're nodding their heads. Absolutely.
And Jim, if they're on and commenting, you can just delete those.
Ignore those comments.
But I think it gives us such an opportunity to, it doesn't require massive training. It doesn't require massive education. If you want to build hope in another person, just show up and just focus on what's right about them. And for us, we think that's a pretty powerful impact.
Yeah. I love just hearing that, even from your own perspective too, Allison, again, I think even when you guys are recruiting volunteers, or again, like you said, the program's spreading all over the region, and I can imagine, again, my futuristic kicks in to just say this is still just the beginning, right? But there's an element where it's not just like, fine, I'll give some time to invest in this kid, but what you're getting back out of it, the impact that it's having on you, and even the reciprocal strength spotting. It's like that validation that we sometimes, even as adults, go, I don't know, is my futuristic getting away? And they go, hey, thank you for your ability to see what's next for me. Oh, okay. That was meaningful. Good. Like, let's do more of that. So that's really cool. I know you mentioned, in our pre-call, just about even the way you've seen this in your own kids and kind of that mentoring piece, but talk a bit about kind of that long-term impact that you've even experienced firsthand.
I think it was 2010 when I obtained my strength-based education certificate. And for me, learning my top 5 was just mind-blowing. I felt like someone had been following me around my whole life, taking notes about the way that I uniquely see the world. But then to learn about my kids' strengths. My daughter is an activator. She's also a high maximizer, high self-assurance. So, I mean, how wonderful is that to parent such a confident young lady? Yeah. How challenging is that to parent such a confident young lady? So when she wasn't asking permission as a kid, her dad and I saw that sometimes is almost like disrespectful. And when we learned more about the activator and the self-assurance and the maximizer, we realized that Lauren actually has a plan and she's confident about it and she was ready to do it yesterday. So when we could see that and know that about her, it changed the way that we parented. Same thing for my son, Sean. He has high competition. He loves the win. He's kind of a fickle fan. So sometimes he's a Husker fan, sometimes not so much, but he loves to compete. So knowing that about him, he had an injury during his 6th grade year of football season, and he broke his wrist and he was unable to play. For him, now I don't have high competition.
Mm-hmm.
For Sean, I would say, these ridiculous things like, come on, Sean, it's just a game. It's not a big deal. But to Sean, it was much more than that.
Right.
So for me to learn more about competition as a strength, helped me understand as a parent, I needed to put competitive moments in his life because he wasn't able to play that senior year.
Yep.
He called it a football,
Yep.
and let him compete. So he could make his bed quicker with a cast than his sister could. That became a competition. We saw his grades improve. We were lucky that he was surrounded by awesome mentors, coaches who knew that about Sean and allowed him to be an assistant coach from the sidelines. So for me, knowing that about my kids helped me in understanding this is where they shine. It might be very different from me. Same thing that we do as mentors. This is where a student shines, might be very different than my perspective. And we're bound to see the world differently because we're coming from different generations,
Mm-hmm.
but also we're coming from different strengths perspectives too.
Yeah, that's again, just kind of seeing it and realizing, even just as a parent, like the way we approach it with these two individuals or the way a mentor, I think it gets back to what you said, is that training that you give them of go in and listen. What does the kid want to talk about? Because even when they're complaining about their younger sister, there's an element of, okay, what was it there that from a strengths perspective or other pieces kind of come into play? So Jim, you have something to question or something?
Allison, I want to ask you a little bit about inside teammates. So from strengths perspective, how are you guys using it internally? We get a lot of questions. We're kind of on a nonprofit series. We had Compassion on last month. I really wanted you guys to talk about it. How's it working inside your organization? How are you guys set up for that as far as the staff using strengths? How are you guys doing that?
Well, all of us know our strengths. That's something that's very important to us. And then Tess, my colleague, and I offer strengths coaching to our staff. But every one of our staff meetings or staff development days, we start with a strength-based activity. So we actually take the activities that we train our mentors to do and we practice them. And it gives us some insight as to what works, maybe something we could tweak that would work a little bit better. But what we've often realized is that greatest human need is being heard. And so when we're allowing people to be heard around their strengths, we know that we can communicate better. So I have our strengths grid, our talent map, right behind me. So before I send an email, I'm looking at this person's top 5. So I'm thinking about the way that they may see this a little bit differently. High communication for me, I've learned that not everybody loves paragraphs and paragraphs in an email. Some people like 3 bullet points. Some people prefer a phone call. Some people would like to talk in person. One of the things that we do in our coordinator training is we ask them to do an activity. We call it Who Are You? And it's what do you love? What do you need? What's the best form of support you can receive? So understanding that everybody's going to look at support a little bit differently, especially based on strengths, that helps us better understand. My husband's high deliberative. Deliberative is not in my top 5. It's actually in my bottom. And one of the things I've learned is that when I give him lots and lots and lots of information, like I tend to do with my input communication theme, I may overwhelm him. So when we can think about the people that we work with, the people that are around us, we naturally bring our strengths to the table, but looking at what are the strengths that they're bringing and how can we honor those, even if it's in an email or a staff meeting. So we do that as a staff, and we also really encourage our staff to be thinking about strength spotting for one another. So when we notice those things in action, Brandon, who's right across the hall from me, he also has high deliberative. He is very good at thinking, and we will see him take a moment. He'll step back, actually remove his hands from the keyboard and think about it for a minute. And so we love to strength spot that in Brandon, that we notice this about him, because I understand that Brandon's going to need more time. Mm-hmm. I can ask a lot of questions in a short amount of time. Brandon will need a little bit more time to process that. So we're not just utilizing it between mentors and mentees. We're utilizing it as coworkers.
How big is your staff when you from a full-time standpoint?
Central office staff, we're about a staff of 20.
Okay, so a good size group. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned any other things you guys are doing as a team from an engagement. How do you know folks are engaged in their jobs and they know what they're doing? Is there anything you guys are doing around that?
We do Q12 measurement, so that's a great way for us to know how strengths is working. We also have 140 chapters of teammates, so that means we have 140 program coordinators all across Nebraska and Iowa and the other states. So when we bring our coordinators together, we do strength-based.
Coordinators are paid or volunteer?
Sometimes it's a stipend through the school. It
Yeah.
kind of depends on each school district. Some of them are full-time employees of the school. Just kind of
They're kind of your local advocate, if you will.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And they have a local board. So they're encouraged to come here for our Gallup Strengths Day, and they implement a day of training, and they take that back to their community, and they might use it with their local board. They may use it with their mentors and mentees. So the more that we can equip others to practice this, we know that that ripple effect continues.
We got a question from the chat room from Asteria Life Coaching asked, what's the percentage of success rate or / improvement between those that have had strengths, the strengths assessment, and those that haven't? Has there been any research in this area, and do you guys kind of keep track?
We have not yet begun. I love growth mindset, the power of yet. We have not yet begun to measure that because what we know is that sometimes a mentor and mentee match will end. So let's say, for example, I'm matched with a 4th grader and the 4th grader moves to a different state. Our mentoring time may end. We know that the student is going to take their strengths awareness and continue with that. The mentor will take their strengths awareness and utilize it at work with their family. So we're trying to figure out, how do we measure the impact of equipping people to know what's right about one another? So if anyone has suggestions about that, we would be excited to think about that as a research piece.
And I think it would be a challenge to define success. What does that mean? The graduation, I guess that would be, do they graduate from high school? Do they, that there could be some, milestones along the way. Have you tracked any? You guys have been doing this for a while now. I imagine some of these kids are through high school and college. Do you guys track those numbers?
We do, as far as the match goes. So if we make a mentor-mentee match, we keep track of them throughout. We do track grades, attendance, and behavior, and we have been keeping track of that for a long time. But we started to pay very close attention to Gallup's measurement of hope. And when we could see the impact of, if a student is looking forward to seeing their mentor, they're more hopeful. That's a tremendous effect. A little bit harder for us to look at grades, attendance, and behavior and say, is this actually an improvement? You might have a student who's an A student that doesn't have any disciplinary issues and doesn't have any attendance issues, but they still are seeing an increased level of hope because they've got that strength-based mentor. We do see great success. Our mentees are actually more likely to graduate from high school than the overall data for the, I believe, for the state of Nebraska. We're really excited about that. We have a post-secondary component so that we keep the match intact. I think back to my college years. Very fortunate that I had mentors in my life when I was in college. So if we can keep that same mentor who's been with the mentee since maybe 4th grade in the student's life on a regular basis, we see a really powerful impact there too.
Do you have a tie into the Nebraska Department of Education as far as being able to get access to these numbers? And then you also mentioned a hope index, a hope number. How are you getting that number for those who don't know?
We have utilized Gallup Student Poll, which is done nationally across the nation, and we worked with Val to determine, from a group of students who'd been matched with a strength-based mentor, we did Gallup Student Poll with those students. If you go to our teammates website, we've got a link to that research, and we were really excited about seeing that, because a lot of our mentors, we don't train them to be tutors. We actually don't want them to come in. If I was supposed to be good at 5th grade math, I would not be qualified to be a mentor. So we don't want them to tutor, but when you show up and you focus on what's right about the student, you see these after effects. You're reminding a student that they are important because you're showing up every week. You're reminding them that they matter because you're going to show up no matter what. And then you also remind them that they have skills and talents that maybe you don't, because they have different strengths than you do, or maybe they teach you how to do something. We do have a direct link for the grades, attendance, and behavior through partnerships that we have with our school districts.
How did you forge those? There's going to be a lot of people who are like, hey, how do I get these numbers? How do I get into the high school and get these kinds of numbers? So was that easy? Is that difficult? Did the districts give you a hard time? So can you talk a little bit about that?
We've been very fortunate to have very positive school district engagement. I think there's so much right now on the plate and in every school district, on the plate of teachers. And to know that there is a safe adult friend who's willing to show up at their school and meet with their a student one time a week and give that individualized attention and focus, we see a very positive reaction to that. We have MOUs with each and every one of our school districts, and we have an RFP plan. We have been an mentoring organization for 25 years. So building trust in that has taken some time.
Yeah, you've been around a while doing it. I'll ask folks if you want more information on the Gallup student poll. Really easy address to remember, gallupstudentpoll.com. We'll get you there. And when there's some information, you can contact us if you're interested in doing that student poll in your area, the schools in your district. They may be doing it already. We just crossed over 1 million students taking that. And so they may be doing it, but you can get more information with us as well. Allison, another question from the chat room. How do you go about choosing, or let me read it exactly as it's saying here. How do you choose your strength-based mentors? What's the process they go through to be chosen?
Actually, it's a willingness to show up, a willingness to be there, a willingness to give about one time per week. They go through a very specific screening process. They go through very specific training and an interview process. We do not match based on strengths. We match based on common interests and hobbies. And most times we utilize strengths at a later time. So the mentor-mentee build a relationship. They start meeting. For example, my mentee and I met when she was a 4th grader. We waited until her 5th grade year to implement strengths so that we took a little bit of time to get to know one another, get to know the structure of what mentoring meant to us. And then we implemented strengths. So we don't match based on strengths, but the mentors go through a screening process and a training and an interview process. And then we do our best to match based on common interests. We don't have it down to a science yet, but I can tell you that our coordinators are really good at noticing the unique awesomeness of students. And they may meet someone like you, Jim, and think, okay, I've got a student who absolutely loves learning more about barbecue. I've got a student who absolutely loves podcasts. Jim would be a great fit for him. So the great thing about school-based mentoring is our coordinators know the kids. And then they're making a match with an individual who's coming to the school and saying, I'm willing to give about an hour a week. We don't require them to have a certain skill set because we believe that just showing up and being yourself is one of the greatest gifts you give to a young person, because when you're authentic, you empower them to feel like they can be too.
If there was someone listening to this in another state where you guys don't reach, and they're interested in like doing something like this, and rather than reinventing the wheel, do you guys have a program where like people can kind of help get chapters or however that works going?
I would encourage them to check out the Teammates website, teammates.org. We have a process to become a Teammates chapter. But also, if you're thinking about starting a mentoring program, if you go to mentor.org, the National Mentoring Standards, they do a wonderful job of putting together an outline of how to establish a new mentoring program. We know that Teammates is not for everyone. Some mentors and mentees would like to have activity time that's outside of the school. So they might want to go to the movies together or go to a football game together. We're strictly school-based, and we know that's not for everyone. But I would really encourage people to check out the national mentoring. The Elements of Effective Practice really put a very good view on what it takes to be a positive mentoring program.
I'll chime in there quick too, Allison, again, to your question, Jim, I love it for people that are interested in mentoring or what are they doing with, again, whether it be people in their local schools or churches or community. When we talk about the research that we found in the student poll, and 2 things on that. One is it's free for schools to opt into. So you might be sitting in some part of the country not realizing your school system already has data. They may have opted in, or you can encourage somebody to opt in. And then Allison, you beautifully laid this out, but what's cool about the impact of what the student poll measures is really 3 things. So it's the engagement of students, the hope of students, and then strengths. So do they know their strengths, and are they leveraging their strengths? And I think even that strength spotting, even without a strength explorer assessment, just having someone who says, here's what you're good at. What's really powerful too, this is actually my favorite line from our student poll data, but it's that hope, which we simply define as the idea and energies that students have for the future. So it says tomorrow, I'm more hopeful and optimistic about tomorrow than I am today. And if students can say yes to that, that's actually a better or a stronger indicator to their future success than their GPA or their ACT or SAT. I say I like that because I wish I would have been able to say that to my mom when I got my low ACTs. But Mom, I'm really hopeful. My future's really bright. So, but those indicators and measurements that are there, if you're, like Jim said, just out there wondering what's there, I love, the links to some of the insight on mentors, but then check out the student poll website too, to just see if maybe your school's already on there and there's some data there on that positive impact that mentors can have on the hope of students.
Allison, we had another question from Maureen in the chat room had asked, and you alluded to this, but can you dig in a little bit more on how you guys get parents engaged in this process? What's their piece in this? And I think you mentioned you send a copy of the report home, but what else are you doing to encourage parents?
Obviously, parents have to give permission for their son or daughter to be part of teammates anyway, from the very beginning. And we do let them know that it's all about their potential. It's not about anything wrong or missing. It's about what's right. They get a parent handbook. They learn a little bit more about a mentor's role. But then if they implement strengths, if the match is finding out what their strengths are, the mentee will make a copy. We make 3 copies of their results, and one goes home to parents. And what we equip parents with is the login, the code for Strengths Explorer, so that they can utilize all of the amazing parent resources that are available there. That was a game changer for me. One of our favorite activities that we do with school staff came from Strengths Explorer. It's the activity where you share, tell me something that you've done recently that you're proud of. So part of my job often is to go out and present to maybe school districts that don't yet know about teammates. And so usually when I go into a school district and I'll ask the superintendent when's a good time for me to talk to the staff, Monday at 3:30 or Friday at 3:30 is usually the 2 options that I get. Very difficult with the woo to have an audience when you're doing 5 slides on a PowerPoint kind of check out. So I learned to ditch the PowerPoint and I started utilizing that Strengths Explorer activity. I asked them to find someone they don't normally interact with and share what's something that you've done recently that you're proud of. When did it happen? And what strengths or talents do you think brought that to the table? And usually I get kind of a weird look at first, but then when they move across the room and they find someone else that they don't normally chat with, the energy builds and the volume builds. And then pretty soon bringing them back together is a challenge for me. And when I do bring them back together, I say, this is what teammates is. We're going to be matching a mentor and mentee who probably wouldn't know one another. And the mentor's job isn't to fix or save or change. It's actually to focus on what's right. You don't have to know your Gallup top 5 or your Strengths Explorer top 3 to ask someone what they did recently that they're proud of. That's a great dialogue for them to really kind of dial in on what are your strengths, because we intuitively know this is right about us, but to say that you're proud of it kind of sounds like bragging. And we encourage mentors to be the recipient of brags. That's one of your biggest jobs as a mentor, is to be the recipient of brags. That you might be one of many people that are excited to hear about that art project, or you might be the one and only person. So, really being the recipient of those great stories about what they're proud of.
With the parents, how have they responded, or what's the typical response that you get from parents? Do you get good involvement? Does it depend on area? How does that work?
Parents are very excited about strengths. They often ask how they can find out about if let's say their daughter is in teammates and they've got a 4-year-old at home, or maybe a son or daughter that's already graduated and gone to college. They want to know how they can find out strengths of their other kids. They're very excited about it. They also love hearing good news come home from the school. Here's a list of 3 things that are right about your son or your daughter. I had one mom reach out and she said, I got this list of 3 things. Where's the rest? And I said, tell me more. Where's the rest? She said, what happened today? Where she was looking for the not so positive. And I said,
what did you do wrong? Yeah.
Right. I said, this is actually it. This is the great natural talents that your son brings. And so being able to show that to parents, I think, can be, for a lot of them like me, very altering in the way that you see those unique things that your kiddos bring to the dinner table, or to maybe time on vacation, or even in the classroom. It helps them give that language.
Allison, have you leveraged with those parents the Gallup strength-based parenting resources? I know you have personally, but I'd love to hear how you've been able to interject that into the program as well.
For parents who are interested, and usually you can tell right away they're enlightened and they want to learn more. I've recommended the Strength-Based Parenting book that Mary Reckmeyer wrote recently. Big fan of that. It also gives them an opportunity. There's a code in there. So if they want to learn about the strengths of another loved one in their life, I'll often get parents who want to know about spouses. So in mentor training, I'll have someone say, now, how can I get this for my husband, or how can I find out about my wife? So I lead them to the strengths resources. We provide codes for our actively matched mentors and mentees, but if there are other people who are excited about learning about their strengths, we point them to the Gallup Strength Center.
Yeah, again, I love that in the strength-based parenting book, we include a code, a Strength Finder code for the parent, or if they got an older kid, and then the Strength Explorer code as well for a younger kid. So it lets them, especially if they've taken, in your case, if they've already taken strengths, lets them have an excuse. Hey, I've got this extra code, lets them figure out their spouse's strengths pretty quickly. So that's cool.
Yeah, depending on the price you buy the book for, those come at a discount, which is nice because you get both codes in there for what you'd pay a little bit more for them being separately. Allison, David is asking in the chat room, have you worked with the Gallup Purdue Index? By the way, thank you for talking about the student poll, because that doesn't get a lot of run in our coaching community a lot of times, but you have shown a really good way for coaches that are working in schools or with students to kind of maybe start paying attention to that. David, on the other end is the Gallup Purdue Index, where we have asked college students on their way out. And we have found, two things that really matter in the school experience. One is internships, which we just graduated 30 interns today from Gallup. Today's our last day for the summer. But mentoring is also mentioned as the second piece in there. Are you guys tuned into that, and how are you using the Gallup Purdue Index?
I am familiar with it, but we have not utilized it very much. I think we kind of do some measurements with our mentor and mentee survey. Obviously, there's a mentoring component to what we do, so we're keeping track of how long does that relationship stay intact. Another great thing that we've noticed is that our former mentees are now becoming mentors themselves. So when you see that ripple effect of maybe a 8th grader who is matched with their mentor, continued all the way through high school, beyond into college, they are now signing up to become a mentor and to continue that ongoing circle.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's really great. We do see amazing results. Just for those, if you just go out to Gallup.com and search Gallup Purdue Index, if you want to do that, there is some amazing results that even happen at the college level, that when we find out that when college students are mentored, it does some amazing things to them and their experience and the success that they have. And so that idea, this concept, great to hear it's having an effect in the second generation, that we're seeing students come out and do that as well. SP is asking if anyone's researched how communication has increased peer-to-peer or child-to-parent through this process. Do you see anything where, because of the heightened self-awareness that is happening, that we maybe see parent-child relationships changing, or child-to-child relationships changing?
Most of our survey data that we do organizationally is a mentor survey and a mentee survey. And one of the questions that we've added this past year is about a mentor's confidence. So based on their training, based on their experience, how confident they feel as a mentor, what we're looking at is tracking, and what are they doing with this, even outside the mentoring relationship. So how has it changed? And that's going to be a little bit more qualitative in those stories that we hear throughout our communities, where we have parents who come and say, my son or daughter had a mentor, I want to be a mentor too. Or my son or daughter had a mentor and I noticed how it helped them be more engaging at home with their little brother or their little sister. So we've got those qualitative stories, but we don't yet have a measurement piece on how it's affecting other relationships. But that is an absolutely great, I've got my little notebook here. I'm thinking, how can we measure that input?
Yeah. It's so funny. We were talking in pre-show, and we were talking about something. You just pulled that out and started writing stuff down. So that's great. Jeremy, as we kind of think about kind of wrapping this, any other final thoughts from you? This will give the chat room maybe a chance to ask any final questions as we kind of bring this in. Allison, you've done a great job of really outlining the program as far as what it could be, how folks could get involved with it if they wanted to, how they could start their own. So great job there. Jeremy, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, and Allison, I just so appreciate you taking the time to just share your story. Super grateful for, again, the impact you guys are having on students. And just, I think there's so many coaches out there that we begin to see how strengths isn't just something we use in the workplace. And so whether it's coaches out there who are parents or who at some point find themselves coaching a teacher or a student, this integration of the power of mentors and strength spotting. Again, there's almost like degrees of coaches. There's certified coaches, and then it's like, how do we just help people to be aware of each other's strengths? And I love the intentionality that you put behind that. And again, even with talking about the training and the ease of some of the assessments, or when people are interested, hey, here's how you can get more. I just think there's, myself included, there's so many of us out there in the strengths coaching community that we can potentially even see that it's not just about coaching and clients, but that's, or kind of the extreme of somebody took their strength finder assessment, now they're kind of left on their own. But there's kind of this squishy space in the middle of really helping people to be mentors, and just kind of speak truth and catch people doing what they do best, to again, as Dr. Clifton always said, to be the best version of themselves. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing and just sharing a lot of those insights today.
Thank you.
Allison, I'm excited to share. We're going to do, you guys are involved in a special project, and we're not going to tease it and give away too much, but we're going to do a second webcast with you guys. And we got some fun stuff coming up on the way to communicate with folks. So we're excited to have you back on. We'll get Tess back on too. Tess, we missed you today. Sorry that we couldn't get you on. But Allison, I appreciate your time and what you guys do. Teammates, by the way, Gallup's a big part, not just of, you guys are a part of it. I mean, we're a part of it from a strengths perspective and our codes and Strengths Finder and Strengths Explorer and all the stuff you mentioned. But I think there's quite a few Gallup employees as well, right? That are teammates.
Quite a few that are mentors, and we actually have a recruitment event coming up here too. So, Jim, I don't know if you're a mentor yet. Jeremy, I don't know if you're a mentor yet, but this would be a great time for you to sign up.
Is there virtual mentoring?
Face to face.
That's my biggest issue.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes it, that's the one thing for me that makes it, it's just the travel and the time. But for individual, I'm sure there's ways to work around that, right?
What we do is we ask for a 1 time a week commitment. We do have on the college level, when we have a mentor who's interested in mentoring a college student, we have a little bit more flexibility, maybe 1 time per month where they're meeting. So we do have some flexibility, but I think you guys are already being incredible mentors. I see how you, I mean, just in the interaction today, you mentor one another. You're great listeners. You really strength spot constantly with what you're doing. But just the way that you're sharing this, I mean, I think you're already in that role of mentors for a lot of people out there.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that. Well, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. A lot of the things that we mentioned today available at gallup.com if you want to head out there and search for those. Those are available. We mentioned, we also mentioned mentor. Allison, say that site again. Is it mentor.org?
Teammates.org.
No, that's yours.
Yes.
But you mentioned another national one.
Yep.
Yeah. So teammates.org and mentor. Oh my God, I don't know why I can't remember that. Mentoring.org. Mentor.org. Sorry. I'm just having a total brain freeze there. You can also get a full list of all the resources that we have available for you as well around strengths are available on our coaches blog, just coaching.gallup.com. If you are interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, we do have a list of all the courses that lead to that certification, plus a lot of other ones that are available to you. We continue to add courses to our lists that are available to you if you want to get access to those courses.gallup.com. If you found this helpful, and I bet you will, please share it. We'd ask you to do that as well. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.